Well, of course, we are expecting the president of Uganda to touch down at 10:30. I guess it's 10:30 now, but at Waterkloof. And therefore, it's going to take an hour or 30 minutes before formalities start. But the Minister of International Relations, Dr. Naledi Pandor, is already here. And I guess you know that she was at the AU summit recently. But of course, this is the day for international relations and the presidency. Yesterday, she hosted her counterpart from Uganda. On the other side, also in Galaga, you had a business forum meeting there. But I'm going to speak to the Minister of International Relations. Minister, I've already spoken to other ministers in relation to issues that are related to bilateral on trade and perhaps on other important agreements that they are going to sign. For you, it's quite a big one as the Minister of International Relations, the face of South Africa outside South Africa. Let's get to the Great Lakes region. The two leaders likely to discuss the current situation in the Great Lakes region. You have just returned from the AU, the president, now the chair of the African Union Peace and Security Council.
Well, yes, and good morning to the viewers of SABC. Thank you for this opportunity, Sophie, once more. Indeed, the Great Lakes region is a priority issue for us. As South Africans know, our country has committed to peace and security on the African continent, and I think has played a very important role in providing support to the Democratic Republic of Congo, and particularly the protection of civilians in the eastern part of the DRC. We have forces deployed there, a fast intervention brigade, along with MONUSCO. So South Africa is already known worldwide for its contribution to peacekeeping in Africa in particular, but worldwide as well. So we will want to get greater detail from His Excellency President Museveni as to how he sees the situation with respect to the current tense relations between Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo. In fact, yesterday there was a sitting of the Human Rights Council in Geneva where our Deputy Minister is present, and the President of the DRC was speaking there about this very matter. So we will want to probe it further, as President Ramaphosa did at a recent meeting of heads of state at the African Union summit, where he, as chair in February of the Peace and Security Council, convened heads of state to discuss the matter of Rwanda and DRC and how we can all contribute to reducing tensions there.
Minister, the other thorny issue is the war in Ukraine. We saw the news that President Museveni spoke to Ukrainian President Zelensky. On the other hand, we saw 1 year on, the war raging on in Ukraine, and South Africa under pressure from the West to take a position. You have been very firm that you are taking a neutral position and pushing for dialogue. Now we get the news that China has come up with what they call 12-point peace plan in terms of paving way, perhaps for the two leaders who are engaged, their countries are engaged in war, to discuss. What is South Africa's position? Have you been consulted? China is your trading partner, but also politically long-standing ally.
I think this is an initiative of the People's Republic of China. We've not been part of the initiative. On the African continent, we are discussing how we may play a role in enhanced diplomacy with respect to this conflict. But the Chinese process is one that is led by their government. Now, one of the points we have made, and I want to reiterate, we are not neutral. We are for peace. We are against war because war brings harm. And so the position we've adopted is one which says, let us find a road to peace. And we believe diplomacy will indeed eventually win the day. It's tragic that lives have to be lost before we realize that we should get around a table and have a negotiated settlement. So as Africa, we are going to continue to seek to play a role at the African Union. We emphasized again the importance of diplomacy and the need for us to really work closely both with Russia and with Ukraine, where the chair of the African Union has already been, and other African heads of state. So we did discuss what they have learned and how we may draw all of this together and work in concert as African leaders to try and help seek a settlement in Eastern Europe.
And the bilateral, what do you expect? What can we as a country expect in terms of the meeting of these two leaders, that is Uganda and South Africa?
Well, one of the things I hope we will address is improved business and trade relations. So I'm very happy that we've had a two-day business forum because there are many issues to iron out. South African businesses have raised a number of concerns with my department and the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition. And I have shared these matters with my colleague, Minister Odongo, and I'm hopeful that working together as the Ministries of Foreign Affairs, we will try to resolve these matters. It's worrying that just over 2 years ago, we had 70 South African companies trading and doing business in Uganda. That number has now gone down to 36. So 34 have exited for a range of reasons. We would like to work with Uganda to create a basis for more South African businesses to invest in that country. So it's certainly trade and business relationships, but also we are allies on the global stage, on the multilateral platforms. We do tend to take the same positions. We also work very closely together in the context of the African Union. And from April this year, Uganda will assume the chair of the non-aligned movement. Again, a very important gathering of countries that do have an unaligned foreign policy approach to world affairs.
Minister, I know you will be meeting later as G20 Foreign Affairs ministers, but there was a meeting of Foreign Affairs ministers of the G20, the finance ministers. It looks like there was no communique. It looks like the G20 is experiencing challenges. Are we seeing a new emergence of a trade bloc around the world or political bloc based on the tension that we've experienced or have witnessed on the global stage?
Well, I think the G20 brings together countries that have very different economic frameworks. Their development status is quite varied. It is a forum whose remit was economic development and broader socio-economic collaboration across the G20 countries. It brings together very powerful huge economies and then your emerging economies. So at times it's difficult to find each other. And I think the West has so attached itself to the Ukraine-Russia war that almost in every forum it is the sole dividing matter. And of course that means many, many issues that we need to agree upon and discuss are being somewhat pushed to the sidelines of the agenda. So I think we really need to think afresh and perhaps look at where we can most appropriately discuss matters of international security and where we can collaborate on issues of international cooperation. I think we're mixing agenda items in various fora at the moment, and that means we're not really doing the business that the world expects of us.
In the Middle East, bad situation prevailing there, the Palestinians, women, children crying.
Well, indeed, as you know, we are very supportive of seeking a solution that allows the Palestinian people to enjoy justice, freedom and human rights. We really congratulate Jordan for having called a meeting which has brought the two parties around a table. This is what we should do. But we've also got to address the violence against Palestinians, the violence against Israelis, the destruction of property, and the illegal seizing of Palestinian land. So all of these matters have to be at the forefront of laying a basis for negotiations. Just as we had the Kaguta minute, you need a pause in that area of the Middle East in order to lay a basis for real discussions to occur. You also have to have the Palestinian Authority and Hamas working in concert because it's difficult to negotiate when the affected countries have divided groups. So I think the matter of Palestinian unity and then also foregrounding the foundation for diplomatic engagement are very important matters.
And finally, Nigeria.
We wish the people of Nigeria well. I am concerned the results don't seem to be coming out as smoothly as we'd expected with the use of electronic voting means. So really, we're wishing the country well, and we urge the Electoral Commission to really accelerate, the work pace and ensure that there isn't any sense that the delay is influenced by an extraneous matter.
Thank you so much, Minister, for your time. Let me quickly grab the Minister of Trade and Industry, Minister Patel. Minister Patel, I was at Galaga. I saw a huge business delegation from Uganda and from South Africa. How did it go yesterday?
Well, good morning first to you and to all the viewers. It's gone very, very well. There's excitement by the Ugandan business community to do more business with their South African counterparts. Last year, our trade, two-way trade between the two countries was about 1.8 billion rand. It's possible to increase that very, very substantially. And the Business Forum is an opportunity to explore where we can do that. We already buy a significant quantity of goods from each other. But when I look at the overall trade, what we're doing with other African countries, there is scope to do so much more with Uganda. And so yesterday at the Business Forum, we had discussions on the food value chain, on medical devices, on other areas of industry. We're also looking at how we can supply the Ugandan market with more infrastructure products from South Africa, components, machinery and things that are made. And all of those are important because they underline how significant it is for Africans to trade with each other.
Minister, what are the barriers?
There are a few barriers that we've identified yesterday. One of it is to ensure that the regulatory environment in both countries are stable and predictable. They know what they can expect by way of the regulations. The second one is infrastructure, delays at ports that affect particularly fresh products. But also, in a fast-moving world, you need to be able to play to logistics strengths. We as Africans need to be able to trade rapidly and move goods rapidly between ourselves. The third one is to grow the size of the market. Businesses will invest more if they see growing economies. And so for that reason, what we're looking at is a strategy to untap more potential in the East African market. And this is part of what President Ramaphosa spoke about, the African Continental Free Trade Area. In fact, the last weekend we were in Ethiopia at a meeting of African heads of state that took another big step forward in getting an agreement to implement effectively the free trade agreement. So the trade with Uganda is an important plank, an important element of growing the South African economy and creating more jobs, particularly for young people.
Thank you so much, Minister, for your time. All the best. That was Minister Ibrahim Patel speaking to us here at the Union Buildings as we wait for President Museveni to arrive, and the President of South Africa will have to arrive first, and then we'll see President Museveni arriving. Quite an important visit. But yeah, you can see ministers are here, and they are waiting to continue with what they are supposed to do ahead of the much talked about cabinet reshuffle. The body language from Minister Pandor and Minister Patel, Minister Togodidiza, not giving it away. Over to you, Desiree.